friends. Welcome to episode 172 of the Fierce Calling podcast. I'm Doris Swift, and I am thankful that you have stopped in to listen today. I have a repeat guest, and you will find out who that is when we jump into the show. But we are talking about some really deep things, but also encouraging things and action steps to walk out of dark places and to encourage you in gifts and talents that God has given you. So don't miss this episode. You're going to be inspired, encouraged, and challenged. And I also want to talk about something that I don't often mention. I am on social media. I connect on Facebook and Instagram and all the things. But when you think about what's going on in the world today, you just never know when those applications are going to shut down and we're going to lose connection. And I wouldn't want to lose connection with you. And it actually happened, I think, a few weeks ago. Instagram and Facebook completely went dark. Like, I don't know what happened with it for sure. But it was something that kind of made me really think about the fact that I want our community to stay together. So if you go to my website, dorisswift.com, you can grab some of my free resources. And when you do, you will also be able to get on my email list, which is a way that I can then stay connected with you. And I know what my guest is going to share with you is going to encourage, inspire, and challenge you. So stay tuned. Friend, what threatens to steal your joy today? When the struggles of this world drain us dry and wring us out, our desert mentality becomes fertile ground for the enemy's lies to grow. We place our trust in what we see and feel instead of in the God we know and love. Surrender the Joy Stealers is a strategic 6-week Bible study rooted in John 15 that helps women rediscover the overflowing, ever-present Jesus joy within that fills them, empowers them, and ripens the fruit God produces in their lives. Using personal and biblical application, women will learn how to identify their joy stealers, surrender them to God, reawaken the joy within them, and share that joy with others. Pick up your copy today. It's perfect for individual or group study. You can find it on all the online retailers. Surrender the Joy Stealers. Rediscover the Jesus joy in you. It's time to take your joy back. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm really excited to welcome back a friend of mine. She is an amazing woman of God. She was on the show very early on when Fierce Calling was first airing the beginning episodes, and it's been a long time coming. She is a trusted speaker and blogger who has served in pastoral ministry for 40 years. She serves an active and growing audience through her blog, evelynsherwood.com, and her bi-weekly subscription devotional, Hope for the Journey. She encourages her readers to grab hold of hope in life's trials by helping them recall God's faithfulness in their past. And I kind of gave it away with the email address. Well, welcome back to the show, my friend Evelyn Sherwood. It's so great to have you.
Oh, Doris, it's so good to be with you again. I always enjoy our chats.
I do too. We're going to get into the book that you have put out. That's amazing. So before we do that, I would love if you would share a little bit about your story and how you're taking action, where your passion, compassion, and conviction intersect.
Sure. I was trying to gauge what part of my story I had shared, because I think my husband and I had just come through COVID at the same time when you had me on the very first time. And we were both in the hospital, almost lost him a couple times, came home, and both of us tethered to oxygen. And then I found out I had blood clots in my lungs. Little did I know that was just the tip of the iceberg of what I was going to face, and within an 11-month period. So that happened in November of 2020. And by May of 21, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away. and they had a follow-up CT scan for me because of the blood clots and discovered some suspicious things. So the day after my dad passed, I was back at the same hospital getting testing that would lead to a cancer diagnosis for me. So in August of 21, I had a complete hysterectomy, and in October began chemotherapy. And I can just say, going through 11 months of tsunami wave after tsunami wave, just knocking me down, knocking me down. I can remember so many times just saying, God, when will it stop? Please make it stop. Like, there wasn't enough time to get my nose above the water level and just take a breath. And so God just began to do things that were so deep in me. And I mean, I grew up in a Christian home. Both my parents, gave their hearts to the Lord really young. They were first generation of their family, but I was young when they gave their hearts to the Lord. So, and they mirrored for me this hunger and thirst to walk with Jesus, to know his will in their life. Just, he was their friend, their guide, their constant companion. And it was so attractive to me. And I remember so growing up going, God, I want to know you. I want to know you as my father. It was very appealing to me. So I gave my heart to the Lord as a young child and grew up just really in what I would consider a rare situation now. I grew up with two very loving parents that loved Jesus and taught me all about him. And then, you go off to college and you have big dreams and big goals, and you're going to change the world, and then life happens. And a lot of life has happened. My husband and I have been in ministry since we were married, thus the 40 years of ministry. We've done children and youth and senior pastor. The church that we are in now, we just celebrated our 27th anniversary here. And, but I've never known such heartache and darkness as I have in the last few years. And God has really been taking deeper the seeds that were planted in my youth. He's taken them deeper in this season of my life.
Wow. What were some of the things that encouraged and sustained you through? I mean, you loved the Lord, you knew Jesus, and like you said, it's amazing that you were raised by a mother and a father who both loved Jesus, because not everybody gets that beginning. But what was it throughout all of the compound trauma, one thing after another, that really sustained you? Or what did you find each day that helped you actually put one foot in front of the other, or not even?
Yeah. It was one of those things that God just began to drop these truths that I knew in my head, but I guess the best I can say is they traveled to my heart during this season. And I began to reframe how I viewed suffering. Suffering has always been that thing that I'm like, God, please don't let that happen to me. Please, God, take this away. God, don't let that, like, I can pray for other people, but God, I don't want the pain. I don't want the suffering. I remember, and this is a funny story, because my mom had stomach cancer, and that was about 12, 14 years ago. I can't remember the time frame now, but and so we moved her and dad in with us and cared for her in her hospice care. And I remember going, God, did I do my cancer duty because I cared for my mom? I mean, because it was so hard to watch her just shrivel into nothing, from this vibrant woman into this frail skeleton of a person. But her spirit was so alive even in that. But I remember just thinking, God, I don't want that. That scares me. I don't want that. And one day I had eaten a lemon poppy seed muffin, and I just went in the bathroom, brushed my teeth, and I saw this black spot in my gum, and I went, is that cancer? Like, but that was revealing to me that I had a fear that was, and it made me question, like, God, if that ever was part of my journey, could I trust you with that? What about me thinks that I can't believe that you can sustain me and walk me through it? And so little did I know that that would be part of my journey. And so God began to show me that everything, because I'd always heard God is with me.
Yeah.
He's with you in the messy middle. And I even said that so many times. I think even I might have said that on the podcast when I was talking about COVID. God showed me, Ev, I'm with you in the messy middle.
Mhm.
But then when it moved into cancer and I was already beat up hard from all the other things, God began to show me that He had gone before me. Everything I was about to step into, He had already been down that path. And I began praying, God, then just mark my path with your presence. Give
Mhm.
me guidance. I don't know what to say to what the first time I sat in the oncology department. I didn't know what to ask my doctor. I didn't know the right questions. And I said, so give me the questions to ask. And little by little, I began to watch God move mountains and do miraculous things. And then some of those miraculous things where He was walking me through very hard things.
Mhm.
And so He began to show me that suffering isn't necessarily I mean, it's part of life because we live in a fallen, broken world.
Mhm.
And suffering makes things rise to the surface in us. It reveals what we truly believe about God and about ourselves. And I saw some things in myself, some fears, some anxieties that were not attractive at all. They were quite ugly. But He also revealed to me that, Evelyn, I'm not alarmed by your wrestling. When you're wrestling with this hard stuff, when you're asking me hard questions, I have big shoulders. I can take it. Just trust me and bring it to me. And so I learned to be able that I didn't have to have it all together. I didn't have to have all the right answers. I could still have all that stuff that I was unknown and messy. And
Mhm.
His love never wavered. It never changed.
Beautiful. That's so encouraging to all of us, really. And it you can even hear in it how your spiritual growth, the formation was continuing, and
Mhm.
how your perspective changed more to even a more holy perspective of
Mm.
drawing near to God and knowing that He draws near to you. And like the scriptures of truth come alive when you're living it out. And so, yeah, it's a hard road. And when you were saying, I don't want that to be my story kind of thing, like, I don't want to have to do this or, face this, or I don't want this to ever happen to me. And then
Yeah.
sometimes we hear people say, well, why not me kind of thing.
Mhm.
But, it's like that thought of, well, what if the worst happened?
Mhm.
What what would happen? It's like, well, God is still good, right? So when you talk a lot, because I know your heart and your ministry originally, when you were talking about all that you went through and everything, way before even that, because I've known you for a long time, and you have a heart for remembering the faithfulness of God, like we read in the beginning out of
Yes.
your bio. It's even part of your bio. It's part
Yes.
of your DNA. And
Yeah.
so and I know that we're going to talk about the book that you have out.
Mhm.
And then there was another book, though, that you still have on your heart, right? That you originally wrote a proposal for because of your heart for this and
Yeah.
what you've learned in God's faithfulness. But even back then, you hadn't been through all of this. So there was even more to come
Mm.
for you to draw on that strength. So could you share a little bit about where your heart is with that and why you are so drawn to that and love that truth so much?
About remembering.
Yeah.
I think it's because I know I am prone to amnesia. You know, when life is just this whirlwind around you and things are busy, it might not be that it's hard stuff, it just might be busy stuff, and a lot is going on all at
Mhm.
once. And it's very easy to lose sight of who God is and who I am in Him. And sometimes what the urgent things feel like they're important, they're really not the most
Mhm.
important thing. The most important thing is that we know God, we walk with God, we know His word. And in that, we will become more aware of who we are in Him. I remember the first, when I did sit with my oncologist the very first time, and she was laying out the prognosis, the treatment plans. And like there was a brief moment where the room was spinning. I heard nothing. I could see her talking. I heard nothing. But these words came out of me. Cancer does not define me. There is only one person who gets to define me, and that is God. And even as the words were flowing out, I'm going, where's that coming from? Because that wasn't how I felt.
Yeah.
But I think in that moment, God whispered that truth in me and out of me to remind me of that He had me, that I was not forsaken. And even though this road was difficult, He is near to those who are broken and crushed of spirit. He does not despise them. He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. And so um, I think that whole thing of remembering to me is critical. Bottom line, I can't live a day without it. I remember even when my husband and I when he had asked me to marry him, and I was going, God, is this the guy for me? And, God began to really whisper some things to my heart. And in the whispering, it was like, you will go back to this day and you'll remember what I told you, because you're going to have some hard times in your marriage, but you remember what I told you. So I think God has been writing the story of remembrance within me for a very long time. But then, this thing just kept going and growing and growing. And then through the last few years, God has taken that message of remembrance even deeper, because I had to dig deep to go on the God hunt through these last 3 years. Like, God, I know that I feel weak. Everything that was familiar to me was stripped: my job, my health, the way that I interacted with my family. My capacity to serve at the church that we minister to, everything was gone. And yet God kept taking me back to how He saw me, and that His love for me did not change because I could not do for Him, that His love was still consistent. And so I opened up 2 new journals. One journal was when I saw something about the character of God, I wrote it down and I looked up scriptures for it. The other one was when he showed me how that directly anchored me back to Him. Like, if I know that God is my Father, then I can be secure in that I am His loved child. If I know He is my guide and counselor, then I know that I can step into the next situation with confidence, because He will lead me in that step. So it went deeper and deeper in me. And so now I do if you were to look at my office, you see reminders everywhere. It
Yeah.
might be a bracelet on my arm, something on my wall, something on my desk, but those things that I don't want to forget, because they anchor me back to God when I cannot see because of the darkness of the storm.
Yeah.
Those things hold me steady.
Yeah. That is awesome, because it is something that brings us such comfort and peace and hope when we know we've walked through something before and He brought us through. And it doesn't mean things are going to be easy all the time, because that's not true at all. But I love how you said you were going on a God hunt.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
that was cool. That could be a title of a book you write next. God hunt. I love that. So now, I don't know that you were doing the art when you were on the first time, because did that start after the cancer?
That was a development that I did not see coming. And that sparked from, I finished my last treatment, and because my body had taken so many hits in such a short amount of time, I knew physically, I mean, I couldn't go up 2 steps without my joints hurting, my muscles weak. I didn't have the physical strength. My lungs were still worn out from COVID. And I remembered a little statement I overheard him say one time to someone else. He said, "You need to remember that God created you with a body, with a soul, and a spirit. When any one of those parts gets out of whack, it will impact the others." So I was like, okay, then God, I can't just look at this as, if I pray hard enough, I'll get better. Which prayer was very much a part of it, anchoring back to Christ and just resting in Him. But I knew that mentally my mind was exhausted. It was hard to read and comprehend what I was reading. Just everything was very physically draining to me. And then emotionally, I didn't even know how to wrap my head around everything we've been through. So there was through the hospital that I had my treatment at, they have what they call a cancer continuum program, and they offered all these different classes that you could go through. They had a physical therapy class you would go through free for 6 weeks, and I took it. I was like, I need to rebuild my muscles. I'm like, God, this is a good way to address my body. And I know that I'm addressing my soul and my spirit because I'm just sitting with you. And sometimes my time with God was not picking up and reading. I didn't put that pressure on me of I've got to read through 10, chapters, or it was just like, today, God, I'm yours. Whatever you want to say to me, what if you just want to hold me, if you want me to worship, whatever this moment looks like, it's yours. And those were my quiet times, and that anchored me back to him. They looked very different every day. But then I thought, I need to process the pain that I've been through and the trauma. And so I joined an art therapy class through the hospital. And at that point, because everything was still in lockdown, it was all on Zoom. So 3 days a week, I started going through art therapy. And one day it just all started clicking. And my art therapy teacher, she just said, I want you to take a magazine page, scribble what you're feeling right now on the back. We're going to rip it up and we're going to do a collage out of it. And I was like, it gave me expression when my words were lacking, is what it did. And then, a couple of months after that, we started playing around with watercolors, and I hated it. I was like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. And then something along the way just clicked, and it became a gentle way for me to process and once again paint the reminders that God had for me, the things He had been teaching me through the suffering. I didn't want to forget them. And so I started painting, and little did I know that was the Just Breathe book that God was writing in me, and I didn't know it. I was just processing.
Wow. Lots of divine clicks were going on at that
Yes,
time.
yes.
And, you think, wow, that was a lot of hard things to go through. But who knows, like, when you would have eventually even started your art? You may not have. I mean, I don't know, but it just seems like something beautiful, as we say beauty from ashes a lot of
Yeah.
times. That gives us comfort and hope to hear that. And the book is beautiful, and it's just enough to where you can feel like you can just breathe, because when you can't really breathe, like when you're going through something that feels like it's just suffocating you, or you can't even imagine getting out of bed, you don't
Yeah.
want something overwhelming.
Yeah.
You're not going to read a novel when you're going through that. So this book is just so beautiful. Just Breathe. When I first got the copies of it, I was so pleasantly surprised of the size of it,
Mm.
because it's just sweet. It's a sweet size that can just slip right into your purse. You can carry copies around so you can give them out to people that God puts on your heart. Because I'll tell you, since you put this book out, Evelyn, lots of people have come on my heart about who to give this book to. And my mom was one of them. I gave her a book because my dad passed away in November, and it has your beautiful artwork in it. And
Mm-hmm.
you are a very gifted and beautiful artist. Like, these are good. It's not just like, I'm not great at art. I can copy things, but I can't visualize something. Like, I can't sit down and now I say I can't. Maybe I can, and I just never tried.
Yeah. There you go.
So this book, all right, so how did it first come about? It's got scripture, and then it also has like a very short, encouraging message on each page.
Yeah, so I'll read one of my favorites to you is number 2. I have,
Mm-hmm.
because there are 30 watercolor pictures in here with paired with 30 scriptures, and then a little practice or thought or lesson that God was teaching me in the hard time. So number 2 is a picture of a sea turtle, and it says, when we are faced with life's uncertainties, it's okay to slow our pace, steady ourselves. Some circumstances cannot be rushed. Slow, steady, stay the course. And Psalm 37, it says, wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. That was actually something that our doctors, when my husband and I were in the hospital with COVID,
Mm-hmm.
struggling to breathe, our pace was totally shifted. Our rhythm, our daily rhythm was not what it had been.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctors kept saying, this is going to be a long recovery. You're just going to have to take it slow and you're going to have to take it steady, but stay the course. And so I just remembered a time that our family, before our kids were launched out of the home, we actually had an opportunity to go to Hawaii and spend 2 weeks and swim with the wild sea turtles. And to watch them, they were just, that's what they did. They were very slow, as there was no hurriedness about them. There was no franticness. They were just moving through. And so that's one of the pictures. And so this whole book is filled with things that people told me or
Mm-hmm.
that God was speaking to my heart during that's what I call our Job season. And when I did the watercolor paintings, when I started doing them, little 4x6s in art therapy class, every time I painted one, I would write down like 3 to 5 scriptures on the back of it,
Mm-hmm.
that picture, like how it spoke to me. And then one day I had the stack. I've got many more than 30. And I put them all in the back of my office door and I said, which one's God? And he just, because he was just starting to pull my heartstrings. And so I took the stack into my art therapy teacher and I said, I think this is a book, and she's like, give me a mock-up. And I didn't even know what I was doing. So I just went into Canva and started messing around. And
Uh-huh.
that was in September. By October, an ebook was out, and last November, the paperback. I was very intentional about the size, the way it feels when you hold it. It's meant to be a companion to walk you through when you're too tired,
Yeah.
like because I remember just going, God, I want to read your word. I really do. So I'll listen to it, but I can't guarantee I'm comprehending, but I still need the reminders that you're with me. And so this is just little bite-sized reminders that God is with us. And I just think that the feedback that I'm getting is people, like you said, grief therapy groups are getting it, hospital waiting rooms now have it, people
Mm-hmm.
sending their kids off to college students. I mean, it's not um, age specific, it's not
Mm-hmm.
gender specific. It really is just for anyone who needs a gentle reminder that they're not alone. One of my other favorite ones, and I'll read this if I can find it real quick. It's number 8, and this one was really hard for me because I think especially as women, we're doers, we're caretakers, we're always looking out for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And number 8 is a dragonfly. That's the watercolor. If life's waves bend you down, be gentle with yourself. Let go of trying to stay afloat in your own strength and let God's grace carry you. And the scripture below it is Isaiah 46:4. I will be your God throughout your lifetime until your hair is white with age. I made you and I will care for you. I will carry you along and save you. And there were so many times I was like, God, I can't do, I don't have anything to give. And he said, it's okay. This is a season. It's okay to let go and let me carry you. And I had to learn to be gentle with myself. I had to learn to say the word no, which was very hard for me.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be there to help everybody else and encourage everybody else, but I was just not at a place that I could do that. And God said, it's okay. I'm eternal. I've got them too. And I'll take care of you. So, and I find it ironic that that's a scripture I read because my hair is white. Um, thank you,
It's
chemo, for the
beautiful.
new hairdo. So
You can
I'll
rock that
leave it at
color
that.
for sure.
So
Yeah, but thanks for bringing out the point that this book is for encouragement overall for a lot of different circumstances and situations in our life. And even if there's like nothing pressing going on, we still have our everyday walk, and it's a breath of fresh air to read this, which Just Breathe is a perfect title for this
yeah.
sweet book. And I love that you wrote and illustrated it, and it's just beautiful. And you have it in a lot of different places, like gift shops and things like that, right?
Yeah, I live in the Midwest region, so there are about 9 different stores, bookstores, boutiques,
Mm-hmm.
just wonderful little shops throughout the Midwest region that are carrying the book, which is
Mhm.
just blows me away. It's getting into places I never dreamed it would.
Yeah.
But then it's also available on Amazon, and I just am grateful for that opportunity to put it on there. And we're working now to get it so people could buy it direct on my website. That's not available yet. So, but I'm just saying, but you can definitely go to Amazon and get it. And it's 10.99. And I just like I said, it's my heart, but really I think more than that, because even when I read it, there's a life in it that it was God flowing through me at a time
Mhm.
I had nothing, and
Yeah.
it's a perfect example of in our weakness, he reveals his strength. And that's what we need is him and his strength. Because in us, we really have nothing, but in
Mhm.
him, we have everything we need.
Amen. And unlike a bracelet that you might wear that reminds you of something, this
Mhm.
book is something that reminds you, but it's something that also now is being shared with a multitude of people,
Yes.
So it's for you personally and also a gift to give others. So it's kind of like our spiritual gifts. It's the only kind of gifts we can keep and still give away.
Yes.
So I love that. And how earlier you were talking about there comes a time sometimes where we just have to lean into the Lord and allow him to take care of us
Yeah.
because we always want to do and help. That sounded weird. But anyway, always going, I should say. And just be the person who brings a meal or, prays or visits or something. Sometimes we are on the receiving end of it. And
Yeah.
that's okay because it also is blessing the people that he's using to do that for us. So
Yeah.
it's a powerful thing, community, the church.
Yeah. And earlier I was thinking about this podcast and just praying like, God, what would you have me share? And he's just like, just trust me, Ev, and but as I do, I jotted down a few little things. And one of the things I thought if I could share with people, if you are going through a hard time where you do not see light at the end of the tunnel, there were a few tools that God put in my toolbox during that 11-month season, and I'll just share those real quick. First, lament. Be honest with God about how you're feeling and what the wrestle is. You are not going to shake him by what shakes you.
Mm.
He is a very present help right where you're at. And he knows and understands your heart and your mind more than you do in your circumstances. So David did it. Jesus did it in the garden. He said, Father, if it be your will, let this cup pass from me, but not my will, yours be done. Which then leads to the next point is then after you tell him everything, just surrender.
Mm.
Just surrender and let him, you will be amazed at the peace that bypasses your circumstances that comes when we surrender and say, God, it's yours. I don't understand it. I don't have to like it,
Mm.
but I can rejoice in you. So then offer thanks. Go on the God hunt. Look for little things to be grateful for. I started a gratitude journal, and quite honestly, it was hard for me to personally look at things around me to be thankful for because I was in such pain. But I began looking at all the scriptures people were texting me or putting it in a DM, on Facebook. And I started writing down all those notes, all those scriptures, any songs that they recommended, and those became my gratitudes. And then finally it got me to the point where I say, God, today, I had 5 minutes where I didn't have pain from neuropathy. So I'm going to thank you for that. Sometimes I felt good enough. I would just take my camera outside and I'd snap some pictures and say, oh God, your creation is beautiful.
Mm.
And then you mentioned it earlier. Make sure you've got community around you. God gave us the body of Christ, our believers, those friends. And it doesn't have to be a Facebook big shout out, but if you have one or two friends who can just listen, who are willing to sit and pray with you, not try to fix it. Because sometimes there's no fixing. We're so good at wanting to fix and move people out of things because we're uncomfortable ourselves with it.
Right.
But what if that thing that we're walking through is a thing that God is going to use to draw us near to Him and see that He is enough? He is truly all sufficient. So grab those friends, one or two that can just sit with you in the hard place and wait with you until God pulls you through. So those were just a few little things I wrote down, and that were the things I walked through, and they made a difference.
Thank you for sharing those very powerful yet simple steps that anyone can take. And I love how you were talking about the community and having a friend that will sit with you in the hard things
Mm.
and in the fun things. I mean, going out for coffee and stuff like that. But when the going gets tough, we need connection with people who are going to be there to lift us in prayer and even just listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are formulating in our mind what we want to say next, and we're not truly listening to what the person's saying. But it is surely a gift to someone to be able to sit there and listen. And sometimes what people need is for us to listen to their pain, and it helps them to talk it out and offer encouragement. So that's really special. And I love that you shared all of those things. And I would love if you would share maybe what you're working on right now, and then how the listener can connect with you and find all of these things, because I know you have some resources and things too that they can grab on your website.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that. That's very generous of you, Doris. EvelynSherwood.com is my website. If you go there, there's a place to sign up to receive my email. I send out a personal Hope for the Journey blog, a devotional, inspirational thought once a month. But then I started last year. I realized that I wasn't the only one that had a story of God's faithfulness in the hard places. So last year I started a guest blog series called Stories of Hope. And some of those are other writers, people I met. Doris, you were on there last year.
Yeah, thank you.
Are the people around me that have amazing stories, and they'll never have a blog, they'll never do a podcast, but man, they have seen God do something amazing in their life. So those are some of the stories I feature on there, and that comes out once a month as well. So that's what, if you sign up for my newsletter, my email listing, that's what you're going to get. And I don't give your information to anybody else. That goes straight to my personal email. The other thing I'm working on is we're working on getting a shop started on my website, which will include cards and stickers that are from Just Breathe, actually. So a lot of people have been asking for some different variations of certain things spoke to them more. Like there's a little sparrow in there. One lady said a dragonfly. Someone else said the lighthouse. And so we're trying to get some of those products on there so people can have the reminders in their space. And then I actually, at the same time that I was doing Just Breathe, that was more of a fall season of my life, and I had just gone through chemo, but that Christmas I was still just really struggling with regaining my strength, and I was like, God, I need to remember who you are. So I painted my way through Advent. So thankfully this fall there will be an Advent book coming out in the same formatting as Just Breathe, pocket sized, meant to help anchor you in a very gentle way back to the heart of God until your strength is renewed and you can get back into more of those deep Bible studies or the thicker books. But so that's coming out this fall. And in the meantime, the book on remembrance is I'm working on sending out query letters to agents and seeking traditional publishing with that one. So a lot going on right now.
Yeah, I love that you're creating an Advent booklet. And I love that you're expanding with the art, that people are asking even now for the art on its own.
Yes.
And how, like you were saying, some of the art really is speaking to the hearts of people with a bird or with a dragonfly. And it's just something beautiful that they can look at and remember God's faithfulness and goodness. So this has been so amazing. I'm so glad that I finally got to get you back on the show. And I would love to have you on again, which I'm sure that we will do that. And let me tell you, friends who are listening, Evelyn is the real deal. This is her. Like, she is so calming. She's a calming presence. She's just encouraging. And she's a person who wants to inspire you, encourage you, but she wants you to love Jesus and know Jesus personally. And I'll have the links in the show notes for you so you can check it out and find Evelyn. And so, Evelyn, thank you so much. And we look forward to all the things that God is going to continue to click in your life.
Yes.
Because then we benefit from it too. All the
Oh,
clicks.
thank you so much, Doris.
So very good, friend. Well, thank you so much. God bless you, and we will talk soon.
Yes, we will.
Thank you for listening today, and I hope that this episode with Evelyn really blessed you and encouraged you. I love so many of the things that she shared, and to remember what anchors us. And we have permission to lament. And when we surrender, we'll experience peace that bypasses our circumstances. Don't you love that phrase? Peace that bypasses our circumstances. As you can almost see it in your mind, the peace just flowing in and going right around the circumstances and sometimes right through it too. So friend, this has been amazing, and I would appreciate if you would share the episode with friends, and also if you could rate and review Fierce Calling. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, on Podchaser. There's a link in the show notes for that. And I hope you'll join me next time when I talk with another woman who's taking action where her passion, compassion, and conviction intersect. Until then, friend, have a blessed week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode that is part of the Spark Media Network that can now be heard on the Edify app.